And to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Humpday-Election Hangover edition. How's your thumper treating you, Dom?
I'm feeling better every minute of the day, Crudy.
Well, you're full of pancakes and opinions today, Dom. Glad to share your company, commiserate with you.
Yes, man.
Both on a glorious election night last night and also through the course of today. Sort of a mixed bag, but Dom, what is the lead?
Crudy, I've been thinking about this all night and all day, and I got to tell you, from my perspective, the lead today is the Republican Party's in disarray.
I'll get to that in just a moment. We got some fine guests joining us to reinforce that opinion, perhaps. We'll see.
We'll see.
John Nichols from The Nation joining us in the 5 o'clock happy hour. And then a little victory lap for the Wisconsin Democratic Party chairman, Ben Wikler. He's going to join us at 5:30. But between here and there, plenty of time for your phone calls. Want to know how you're feeling on this election day, other than a little hungover, perhaps. But, you know, you're Wisconsinites. You'd have felt a little hungover on a Wednesday morning
Everybody
anyways.
gets up and goes to work. Anyway, Crudy, how you feeling, man? I know it's been stressful. Everyone's been on edge. The election here and gone. How are you feeling, Crudy?
I'm feeling like I should share the phone number quickly at 844-967-2789. Here is how I'm feeling this morning. Like $100.
Nice.
I also have a belly full of, they had the fresh strawberries at the place.
Yeah, so good.
So I had a little fruit with my crepe.
The pancake, the house that serves pancakes?
The original one.
Yes.
I had, the half eggs Benedict. Damn, it was like the good old days.
That was, man.
We had breakfast for lunch and, put a little prep into the show and got ready for a really, really big one, Dom. And last night, it was a big show. But as you mentioned, the Republican Party is in disarray. Or as it's being described by how should I describe Mark Thiessen, the ghost writer of the Scott Walker biopic?
That sounds about right.
Unintimidated. But of course, it was mostly fiction. It was a work of fiction. He never got surrounded by cops in La Crosse. Or pardon me, never, while in a cop car, Scott Walker claimed, protesters shook the car.
Shaking the car.
Feared for his life. And then I called up to my friend at the La Crosse Tribune. And they said, that never happened.
No. But Mark Thiessen, so Scott Walker buddy, put it that way. Also a Washington Post contributor, I believe, as well.
Oh, I see his crap on the Post.
Yeah.
Far too often.
And out on the cable news networks.
Well, specifically, he's out there spending a little time on the Foxy News, Dom. And he called last night's performance of the Republican Party a predicted red wave, a tsunami coming, Dom. Or as Mark Thiessen would describe it, an absolute disaster.
Oh, damn. Tell me more, Mark.
Well, I will, Dom. I'm going to share from AlterNet. Alex Henderson writes this. When election night arrived on Tuesday, November 8th, Republican strategists were hoping for a massive red wave like the ones the GOP enjoyed under Democratic President Bill Clinton in 94 and Democratic President Barack Obama in 2010, and the type of red wave the Obama famously described as a shellacking for his party. But on Wednesday morning, November 9th, today, Dom, with votes still being counted, it was up in the air which party will have a majority in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate in 2023. One conservative Republican who was willing to admit that the red tsunami didn't materialize in the 2020 midterms was Mark Thiessen. Some pundits on Foxy News have insisted November 8th was a great night for the Republicans.
Well done, Republicans.
But Thiessen on the right-wing cable news channel candidly described the 2022 midterms as a disappointment for Republicans. Thiessen argued, and, don't get caught up in the false accusations against Joe Biden. Hear the criticism inherent of the Republican Party here. Thiessen argued, I quote, "We have the worst inflation in 4 decades, the worst collapse in real wages in 40 years, the worst crime wave since the 1990s, the worst border crisis in U.S. history. We have Joe Biden, who is the least popular president since Harry Truman, since presidential polling happened, and there wasn't a red wave. This is a searing indictment of the Republican Party. That is a searing indictment of the message that we have been sending to the voters." They looked at all of that and looked at the Republican alternative and said, no thanks.
Oh, damn.
That's a Republican describing the Republican Party being in disarray,
They're totally in disarray. I'll jump in here, Crudy. Some of Thiessen's GOP talking points.
You don't have to defend him, but there's more quotes from him.
All right, but I think it's very clear, and I just want to point out, because we said it, they are fact-checked and debunked, calling him the least popular president since Truman. Is hard to back up in light of what Pew reported that in October that Biden's job rating is fairly comparable to Reagan's and Bill Clinton's at this stage of their presidency, but lower than Obama's. Those 3 presidents, like Biden, lost ground over their first 2 years in office. Biden's current rating is much lower than George W. Bush and his father. But point being, Crudy, yes, they get on the Foxy News and they lie. But again, back to the point here at the Raw story, Thiessen argued, quote, "The Republican Party needs to do a really deep introspection. Look at the mirror. Look at the mirror right now, because this is an absolute disaster for the Republican Party, and we need to turn back. We need to look at who won today. Ron DeSantis, Mike DeWine, these governors, Kemp, Abbott. Look at these governors. This is the path to the future, and electing these radical candidates who ran far behind them has put the Republican Party in a terrible position, and voters have indicted the Republican Party."
Except Ron Johnson. Here in the state of Wisconsin, we are more fearful of the black senator, or the potential thereof, than the insurrectionist senator that we know and apparently love.
The white insurrectionist senator?
That guy was popular enough to win re-election. He declared victory earlier today. Now, it has also been confirmed by outside media sources. And this may shock you in the audience, but I turned on Righty Whitey Talk Radio for just a minute, and guess who was popping up to claim victory?
Rojo. Was he concerned about the
zero graciousness there?
Well, shocking. But how did he feel? Any concern about the election? I mean, was it fraud? Was they going to have to do a recount? I mean,
he was very no.
No, really, that's strange.
Zero electoral concerns, none.
Right? That's interesting
whatsoever. And actually, Mandela Barnes has subsequently conceded. Tim Michaels. That's the flip side. The weird outcome we have here in the state of Wisconsin. Now, Pat Kreitlow, I believe, had at least said this could be a possibility.
Yeah.
We, the state of Wisconsin, could re-elect our incumbents in both races, even though they come from different parties. And that's exactly what happened. So Pat Kreitlow, who was part of last night's splendid coverage right here on Civic Media, thank you to all the fine people that listened last night. And Dom, I want to acknowledge our teammates. They were fine teammates. Terry Bell did all the elections updates. Terry Bell was and still is our news director for Civic Media. The aforementioned Pat Kreitlow, he does the morning show, 6 to 8 a.m. You know Pat. He's Up North News Radio. He did lots of anchoring last night. Chad Holmes from Wausau, Bull Falls Radio. Don Brown joined us from Waukesha, the former Waukesha alder. Earl Ingram joined us live. Unfortunately, it was not a victory party for Mandela last night, but the check-ins from Earl, they should be award-winning. Joanne Krulets from our affiliate, WRCE in Richland Center. Who else am I forgetting? Lots of people on this list. Kristen Bry, she offered some of the earlier anchoring. Did I mention Luke Mathers? Did I mention Melissa Kay? Who am I forgetting, Dom? You were here.
There's so many.
E-Bone was in the booth. I mean, damn, I'm telling you, that was award-winning election coverage. And the awards have not been yet awarded, but I'm telling you, that's a winner, baby. I was part of it. I was listening. It was damn good stuff.
It was good stuff. A radio-a-thon, man. It went to all hours.
Todd Alba kind of caught the late shift. He pulled the short straw.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
He stopped through before, and he said, "Hey, Mike, I'm running to get coffee." I said, "There is no time clock here, first and foremost. And second of all, the day after the election, man, you don't have to ask permission to go get coffee. Go get yourself some coffee, fella." He was up doing the shift till
Coffee's
2.
for closers, and he gets his coffee.
Well, he was the closer last night. He pulled the 11 to 2 a.m. shift on the air. And Terry Bell was here, and E-Bone was here. So, and we were listening. We were commiserating with the team. As they were coming off the air, we were making sure they were in good spirits.
It was a lot of fun.
We did have a good time last night. And thankfully, fortunately, Dom, it was a relatively blue night here in the state of Wisconsin. Now, the known outcomes, we know Tony Evers was reelected governor. He made his declaration last night. Subsequently, we know that Ron Johnson, the incumbent U.S. Senator, won his reelected bid. That one sticks a little. But that doesn't change the math per se. You know what I mean?
Right.
Ron was already the incumbent.
We still
Republican.
have Evers as the goalie, and we're still stuck with Ron.
And we still have a Democratic Attorney General, Josh Call. Eric Toney, the Republican, conceded last night. But we do have a couple of other problematic races now. Derek Van Orden in the 3rd CD.
Insurrectionist Derek?
Well, Congressman insurrectionist Derek Van Orden in the 3rd CD. He won last night.
Terrible.
And that was a much closer race than the DCCC predicted. They totally abandoned Senator Brad Pfaff. That was a winnable race. That was left on the table. Now, a supermajority was earned by Republicans in the Wisconsin State Senate, but
thank goodness
the Democrats retained more than a third of the seats in the assembly. So despite nearly an even split here in the state of Wisconsin, they barely held off a Republican supermajority. As Tony Evers said last night, we poke it tonight, we get to work tomorrow. Well, here we are. It's Wednesday. Polka along. You're listening to the Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
Cup of coffee in the big time.
No, inappropriate. Stop it right now.
Excuse me, pardon?
Getting lost in a city you always wanted to visit.
Pardon, madame. Pardon? S'il vous plaît. Je cherche un restaurant. Merci.
Getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed.
So cool.
Get the latest info about COVID-19 vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
My fine guest, Maggie Dawn, attorney at law. I thought that the laws of the United States were supposed to evolve with societal norms. The vast majority of Americans, 70% approximately, believe that Roe v. Wade should be the law of the land. So that seems exactly contrary to the way the courts are supposed to evolve with our nation.
I'll just say this. The guy in Colorado can't be forced to make a gay wedding cake, but I can be forced to make a baby. I don't know about you, but that makes no damn sense to me.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Dirty Has. No, the Devil's Advocates. Phone lines are open. Join us on the phones. It's the election eve, the election hangover, not election eve.
We're still celebrating, are we not?
Is that what we're doing? Yes, we're celebrating. 844-967-2789. Celebrate with us.
Dominic, before we get to the sound from a victorious Tony Evers victory party last night, I'd like to point out, coming up in April will be the most important election of your lifetime. The Wisconsin Supreme Court is in the balance.
Hell, we have the primary on February 21st.
It's coming quicker than you think. And if you believe some of the scuttlebutt, I mean, Ron DeSantis, by 20 points, won re-election in Florida, which is a great pivot to running for president, I would suspect, Tom. And Donald Trump is already making scuttlebutt that he's going to make his announcement like next Wednesday.
Yeah.
He's going to make his announcement he's running for president, perhaps as a hopeful get-out-of-jail-free card.
Well, that won't work, but I wonder, number one, I don't believe he's going to do it, but even if he says he's running, he's probably not running. But even if he says he's going to run and not run, will he still do it next week? Because that came out before the Republicans got their ass handed to them, thanks in large part to Donald Trump's unpopularity and terrible picks.
The Republican Party's in disarray. The other interesting little factoid, Tom, weather-wise, will be weather central here as well. A little tropical storm bearing down on Mar-a-Lago. He was supposed to make the announcement down there. Evacuation orders in effect. Will he batten down with his top secret documents, Tom, or do you think he'll clear out? Anyways, let's look back at last night. And Governor Tony Evers, he was celebratory, downright festive, the governor. Let's play it for the people. E-Bone, you played it for him last night in real time. Play it again today. Just the sound bites. Cut 14, Tony Evers.
We showed up for the reproductive rights and the freedom for you. The freedom for you and your neighbors to make their own health care decisions without having to ask me or any other elected official.
More from Tony Evers at the victory party. Play it for the people. Cut 15.
We're going to polka tonight and get back to work tomorrow. Thank you, Wisconsin. We love you.
It's interesting. Tim Michaels in concession said something similar, but
it came off a little different.
48% Tim.
Well, less than 48%.
Well, that's a rounding error up to 48.
Yes.
I don't like to do math on the radio. As Daniel Bice is pointing out, the Michaels campaign was quick to call Rebecca Clayfish, brand her 48% Becky. Well, now they are 47 point something percent.
47.8, I think Daniel Bice pointed
Well, that equals loser, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
You're number one loser.
First loser.
You took second place. That's real swell. Now go back to Connecticut. More from Governor Tony Evers. Holy mackerel, man. Cut 16.
I'm jazzed as hell to tell you that on January 3rd, 2023, I will still be the 46th governor of the great state of Wisconsin. Holy mackerel, folks. How about that?
How about that?
How about that?
Wait, one more from the ever dynamic governor of the state of Wisconsin, Tony Evers, celebrating. He was on the Civic Media Network yesterday, Dom, not just in speech form. He also appeared on the Earl Ingram show. Lots of you listen. Hopefully you've enjoyed Earl and you'll continue to listen. But one more from Evers at the victory party, making speeches, Dom. Cut 17.
Protecting our natural resources and investing in our reproductive clean jobs. Excuse me, I goofed that up. Defending reproductive. Thank you. I love you too. I will always make mistakes when I give a speech. I promise you that.
I believe you, Tony.
That is a promise he has already kept. So that was Governor Tony Evers, a celebratory Tony Evers. But the flip side, the Tim Michaels campaign, this guy spent a lot of money to end up first loser. Play it for the people. E-Bone, if you'd be so kind. Cut 20, Tim Michaels.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. And thanks for all the hard work that happened over the last, 2.5, 3 months in the general and in the primary. I couldn't be more proud of people. Unfortunately, the math doesn't add up. I just called Governor Evers and conceded. I wish the Evers family well.
Rigged election.
Fraud. Boo, boo.
More from the concession speech of Tim Michaels. My wife said to me, he didn't know what the hell he was doing. Got 21.
He didn't. That's why he lost.
I hope that some of the problems that were identified will be taken very seriously by the Evers administration. Let's not be in denial. MPS is broken. We need to back law enforcement, and things need to be happening.
And turn Madison upside down. More from Michaels. While there's time, cut 22, please.
It's the greatest state in the union. There's tremendous work ethic
Talk
here.
about Connecticut.
Great communities to raise a family.
Tremendous work ethic. I thought he called him really lazy.
One more from Michaels. First loser, Tim Michaels. Cut 23.
In hindsight, looking back, I don't know what we would have done differently. It was a very spirited effort.
Not be a loser.
I loved going everywhere from Superior to Kenosha, Sheboygan to La Crosse. We campaigned in bars and bowling alleys and supper clubs, football games, everywhere. And the enthusiasm was just off the charts. But,
Not really. Your enthusiasm sucks right now.
It wasn't our night tonight. And I thank everybody for all of your support. God bless. Thank you.
Terrible. You went from Kenosha to COVID, Curdy. I'd like to thank everybody for all your support, all the really hard work, all the non-lazy people that I hire. And Wisconsin's great. Love you,
Dominic. When all those sound bites were strung together, that entire speech was maybe a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe a minute. He didn't know how to concede. He didn't know how to be a good gubernatorial candidate. Obviously, look at the outcome.
I mean, the only thing I would change for that campaign would be the candidate.
Here's what I would change.
What's that?
The Donald Trump impersonation. Here's Tim Michaels doing Donald Trump. I'm doing my Donald Trump impersonation now. Only he would talk loudly. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. More loud noises. 844-96-PARTY. Like, wow, Scoob, it's Devil Radio. Rebel Radio. Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Since when are real estate brokers so concerned about the environment?
Drew, you should know that at Solidarity Realty, we provide outstanding real estate service while adhering to our core progressive values. Environmental sustainability is a big part of that.
So you really walk your talk, huh?
Yeah, I even walk to work.
Come on, always?
Well, sometimes I bike, and if I have an appointment across town, I use my solar panels to charge my plug-in.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Check them out at solidarityrealty.com.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Atomic Koi. Come to the Koi and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then, I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of the Atomic Koi and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to...
Election update. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden says yesterday's midterm elections were good for Democrats.
We lost fewer seats in the House of Representatives than any Democratic president's first midterm election in the last 40 years. And we had the best midterm for governors since 1986.
The president adding,
the voters were also clear that they are still frustrated. I get it. I understand it's been a really tough few years in this country for so many people.
A number of key races remain undecided, including the Senate race in Georgia, where incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock will face Republican Herschel Walker in a runoff December 6th. Neither candidate reached the 50% plus one winning threshold. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
We have no control over how many campaign ads our voters are going to see over the next 30 days, but we'll make sure that we have honest and fair elections.
Early voting in Georgia is set to start on the 28th of this month. I'm Tim McGuire.
First, we decide where we want to go. Then we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barada. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold. We're the highest rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matner with your headlines. Wisconsin's Democratic Attorney General Josh Kaul stays in office after picking up 51% of the vote over GOP challenger Eric Toney's 49%. Toney conceding during a speech earlier this morning. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos easily holding onto his seat Tuesday after a write-in campaign was launched by a candidate endorsed by former President Donald Trump. Trump leveled his weight in the GOP against Vos, trying to boost Adam Steen over the finish line with a recent endorsement, calling Vos horrendous. That does not seem to have worked. The Assembly Speaker begins his 10th term in January, and incumbent Republican Brian Stile expected to retain his seat in the 1st Congressional District over Democratic challenger Ann Rowe. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN, 1580 AM.
Republicans will never lose another election in Wisconsin after I'm elected governor.
They're not going to work here anymore anyway.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the election hangover edition. Hump Day. Hump Day. Hump Day. Whoop, whoop. Your calls always welcome here. We're taking them up until 5 when we have John Nichols from The Nation. And then a little bit later, a victory lap from the Democratic Party of Wisconsin chairman, Ben Wikler, going to join us in the happy hour around 5:30. But your calls, as mentioned, could be next. 844-967-2789. Dom, more from the other side. The U.S. Senate race, not as successful for Team Blue. Ron Johnson. Overnight, the numbers were very, very close. And Dom, I said, we need late absentee ballots coming out of Milwaukee. Yeah. But as you and I went around the state, be it Dane County, be it Milwaukee County, all around the state, we saw consistently that voters that voted for Tony Evers did not vote for Mandela Barnes, even in the bluest parts of the state. And where it was most dramatic was in Waukesha County.
Yeah.
Tim Michels was not a popular candidate. We talked about this last night during our extended election coverage. Waukesha County was not as friendly, not nearly as friendly to Tim Michels as it had been to the Walker Clayfish administrations.
Yes, Craig Gilbert broke that down for us. In 2018, Walker wins Waukesha by 75,000 votes. In 22, Michels wins Waukesha by about 46,000 votes. So 29,000 differential.
Just in one county.
In one county, yep.
And a lot of that were voters that did indeed vote for Ron Johnson, but chose not to vote for Tim Michels. So Michels, the less appealing candidate.
Yes, Michels had 29,000 less Republican votes in Waukesha County than Scott Walker did.
So Mandela did not perform in the same way. I'm looking for a takeaway, Dom, and I'd hate to think the takeaway from this elective cycle is Wisconsinites are sufficiently racist that the crime ads, the dog whistle ads targeting Mandela Barnes, they had enough impact to depress the vote and allow Wisconsin to effectively split the outcome. We've got a Republican U.S. Senator in Ron Johnson. I mean, the guy played a part in the January 6th, Tom.
I know, dude. I mean,
he freaking got reelected last night, and he claimed victory today before the press, before the major media gave him the benefit of the count. You know, he was out there claiming victory. And as noted by you, Dom, despite all the recount experts and all the seeking of the fraud and the malfeasance in the electoral process.
He put up on his website, hey, enter your information here if you have any problems, any questions, concerns about election integrity. And I did so. And then for the next 10 days, I got nothing but ads text to me, camp for money and from other Republican icons.
Have the text stopped them?
Ironically, Crudy, I believe they have.
And there are no calls for recount from the roadshow from the Ron Johnson.
And I'm thinking my email might be broke too, because I have hardly any emails in from all my new friends.
Let's play a little of the roadshow, cut number 18. Listen how he describes how the lies are so effective.
That's a little depressing, isn't it? That lies can be that effective. And if you ever wonder, quite honestly, why more good people don't run for office, I would just recommend people take a look at the Wisconsin U.S. Senate race in the year 2022.
Yeah, you put some really crappy ads out, Ron. I think people should take note of that.
Again, Ron Johnson now has declared victory, but this was last night when he just anticipated declaring victory, cut 19.
I quite honestly, I think anybody looking at the numbers would have to admit that fact. But for whatever reason, they're not willing to call it. But I don't see torturing you guys anymore by staying up till, for a couple more hours, because who knows how long they'll take to actually call this race. So, we'll wait till all the numbers come in before I declare final victory. But I do believe that this time, truth has prevailed over the lies, over the character assassination.
I would say rigged election now.
Right?
But I will say, unfortunately, it's still so close. And that's a little depressing, isn't it? That lies can be that effective. And if you ever wonder, quite honestly, why more good people don't run for office, I would just
That's the same. Yeah, we're good there. Okay. Ron Johnson.
Let's play a little sound of the conceding U.S. senatorial candidate, Mandela Barnes. Of course, he is lieutenant governor, will not be come January 23rd. Play it for the people. Cut number 10, please.
I got into this race because I believe in the Wisconsin promise of a fair shot at success. Whether you're a dairy farmer in Monroe or a thrift store owner in Superior or a kid born on 26 and Locust, right in the heart of the city of Milwaukee.
More from Mandela Barnes in concession. Cut number 11, please.
Just want to thank you all for your refusal to settle for the status quo, for your refusal to settle for less, and your commitment to joining together to fight for better, to fight for more.
One more from Mandela Barnes. He was on our show yesterday. A little too late to give him the bump he needed across the finish line. Cut 12, please.
It's the time for us to show up like we've never shown up before. To make sure that Ron Johnson, every political leader, knows that they answer to every person in Wisconsin, not just the people that voted for him.
Mandela Barnes, gracious in defeat. No claims of rigged election or anything. I hear, Don.
Yeah, I'm so used to that from the Republican side. It's a breath of fresh air not to hear from someone who actually lost an election. And in this case, so tight. Looks like by 27,000 votes, 50.5% to 49.5%.
844-967-2789. Jeannie from Eau Claire, how you feeling this morning, Jean?
Hey,
or
Jeannie.
this afternoon, as the case may be.
Well, I think we definitely need you guys over on our side of the state, especially in my area, in the rural areas adjacent to Eau Claire, to include Chippewa Falls and Mondovi and, in Trempealeau County. I was looking and comparing the election results as I was listening to your fabulous programming, and boy, Evan did an outstanding job keeping everything going. I was so impressed with your coverage. I wasn't going to pay attention to it because, I usually have to look results at the different websites and it takes forever. And I listened to you guys and I got all the coverage. It was amazing, all the different people and personalities that you had.
Jeannie, we are very
A+.
We are very proud of the civic media team, and so many people chipped in so much labor and effort just to pull it off last night. I got to feel like they're all a little hungover today, Jeannie. Maybe not in the same way Dom and I are, but still feeling it, if you know what I mean, sister.
I'd like to say one thing, though, about those ads that Johnson put on that were racist ads. And they were played frequently on my side of the state. And I want you to remember, we have, poor internet. We don't have a lot of access. Cable's outrageous. A lot of people don't have it. So the people, and then all they count on is their news. And our news times, at supper time, were just packed with that filthy race. I mean, I couldn't even watch my news after that because it made me nauseous and sick. Then, if you notice that they'll have the ads targeted to certain areas. Every time I went on YouTube, even though they'd say, stop seeing this ad, I'd hit on it and I'd hit the one that's the worst one, that it was misinformation or whatever it was. Every time I saw one of those ads, I was bombarded with them. A lot of times I couldn't stop it fast enough to make a complaint about it. And it's amazing. A lot of people have Roku here, on Roku, on those stations. The racist ads were just blasting. So I believe in my heart, because people down here got to meet and see Mandela Barnes. He was active to farmers and in those different areas meeting with people. He was a lovable guy, but somebody was telling me how people were asking, did you see that? Is Mandela Barnes against police? In the way that they showed it was just putrid, connecting them to Kenosha on our side of the state. Oh, rampant crime up in Kenosha and up over on that side of the state where people aren't getting the information. So that's a big deal for around here, because I looked at the different votes, and just around me in Chippewa and around Chippewa and Mondovi and those different areas between Eau Claire, Altoona did well in blue, and I think La Crosse. I didn't look at La Crosse because I didn't go down that far, but all around me, bright red.
Yep.
That's probably how the one guy got it, the insurrectionist. Ugh, makes me sick. And then I didn't get many flyers either. I didn't get hardly anything in the mail. And these areas here usually get a lot of mailings. So they got the people on the TV and right-wing radio, because a lot of people work in the farms or listen to their radio, and they don't get very good internet access or other information. So you guys are really important. So I hope you expand to this area, because we sure could use a good source of honest information. And I didn't mean to go on and on, but thank you very much.
Jeannie, with that attitude, we're making you part of the next elective cycle. Comprehensive coverage right here on Civic Media.
Jeannie, bringing it home from Eau Claire County, a bright blue spot in an otherwise very red part of the state as of right now.
Dom, as I've traveled this state, I've been talking about the fact we have been, pardon me, my partner and I have been in acquisition mode. We've been buying radio stations, as Jeannie alludes to. And where I look at where there is the most possible impact, I think, Dom, and right now we don't have you covered, Jeannie, and I hope to get you covered, but we're not there yet. But I can tell you where Amory, Wisconsin is located. Polk County turned out about 61.5% for Tim Michaels yesterday. About 20,000 ballots cast in Polk County. That is where Amory is at. The community or the county immediately to the south there, where we're going to have a country station as well, over 40,000 votes cast in St. Croix County. That's an outmarket Minneapolis market. Well, here's the deal. When you gotta buy the market in Minneapolis, it gets so expensive. That's the number 13 media market in America. Well, Madison's like the number 92 media market. Green Bay's like 63, and Milwaukee, Kenosha, Racine's like 42. That's a huge media market relative to any of the cities in the state of Wisconsin. So it gets neglected because there is not a Wisconsin side media market. But this is outmarket Minneapolis. Effectively, Minneapolis is a very blue area. Minnesota. They just took legislative majorities in both sides of their house, talking about the Democrats did for the first time since like the early 1980s. So I think there's plenty we can do, Jeannie, and I'm certainly here to help. And tell your friends in that part of the state, 1260 AM in Amory, Lake Air, and we're coming soon with other supporting stations in that part of the state. And I can tell you, Dom, my only regret in this elective cycle, and you pointed it out, when all the money is spent and all the ads have run, we're still going to be here today doing a radio show.
We're still here, Crudy.
And here we are. And because Sage Weil has seen the wisdom in investing in, sort of this pipe dream I've had for at least a decade, Dom, that someone needed to build out a network and try to tell the truth in the state of Wisconsin. Now, before the elective cycle, and this one will be my takeaway from this elective cycle, the recent New York Times article about Ron Johnson living on right-wing talk radio. 96 hours of free media that Ron Johnson received down the stretch. Now, no offense to the Mandela Barnes campaign. We had him 13 minutes after he won the primary. I heard him on Earl's show for about 15 and maybe 15 minutes on Native Roots Radio. So under an hour on the network. He's a very charismatic guy. He's a tremendous candidate. And unfortunately, he's looking for work. Well, here's the good news. The next time he runs, Dom, at least he'll have some experience in the private sector. Ron won't be able to trash talk our buddy Mandela Barnes. Come back, more trash talking on the other side, more Devil's Advocates. You can be a part. 844-967-2789.
They'll know what you did.
Senator Johnson wished to hand-deliver the fake electors' votes from Michigan and Wisconsin.
Play it again, son.
Senator Johnson wished to hand-deliver the fake electors' votes from Michigan and Wisconsin.
Right now, we all feel a little disconnected. For seniors living alone, the isolation can be overwhelming. Connect with an older loved one and have the conversation of a lifetime at StoryCorps.org/AARP. A message from AARP, StoryCorps, and the Ad Council.
I may never have met you. We don't go way back. Maybe we wouldn't even be friends if we did. But when you wear a mask, you have my respect. Because your mask doesn't protect you. It protects me. I wear my mask to protect you. Mask up, America.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
Matt from Mount Horeb. Welcome, Matt. What do you got for us?
I don't get these people, man. All these teachers are groomers and pedophiles. We need them armed to the teeth. The only way.
Right.
I mean, is your name Jeffrey Lebowski? Because your mind is limber.
Oh,
appreciate you listening.
That's a great point, though. Yes, the teachers, they're the ones doing the indoctrination, right? The teachers are the ones that are woke. Give them guns.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstad at the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I am proud to introduce you to Choice, our new pink grapefruit-flavored hard seltzer. Choice was made in collaboration with Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin, and 5% of the proceeds from every can goes to support them and their fight for reproductive freedom. Choice Hard Seltzer tastes great and comes in at only 105 calories per can. Go to our website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, to find where you can buy Choice Hard Seltzer.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
It's okay to have questions. Now, get the facts. Visit GetVaccineAnswers.org so that you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Think you know politics? Think again. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open. Join us now before our guest,
John Nichol from The Nation.
Yes, yes.
And a little bit later, Ben Wikler,
yes.
Democratic Party of Wisconsin chair.
Thank you.
I can tell you're moving a little slow.
I got the notes, but I didn't reach them. 844-967-2789.
Also, in reference to Jeannie's recent kind words, how can we help? We at Civic Media. How can this network help affect future electoral outcomes? I'm looking at Marathon County. That's where Wausau is at. We're playing out there right now on WXCO, Bull Falls Radio. Dominic, 1,000 votes came out of Marathon County last night. 58% of them went for Tim Michels. Evers barely polled just under 41%. That is a huge swing. In an area, when you talk about Wausau, they just elected a Democratic mayor. So there are blue tendencies in that area. Maybe if they heard the truth once in a while,
exactly,
maybe they might vote a little differently. We'll see in future elective cycles. 844-967-2789. Millie from Madison. Welcome, Millie. What do you got for us?
Hi, Millie.
Hi, I was in Minneapolis over the weekend.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, actually, it was about a long weekend. And I was surprised at all the Michels media that I heard in Minneapolis. And there were signs. I mean, there were like yard signs going in Hudson, going into Minneapolis. And I said to the people I was visiting, what the heck is all this political propaganda from Michels doing up here? And I was told that Michels' family, their construction company, works in the Minneapolis area, and from Eau Claire, when you're on 94 driving, I mean, I was really shocked to see how much media exposure there was from Michels in that area.
Millie, I've been driving the state all summer long. First, the primaries. This guy came out of Connecticut, carpet-bagged his way into the state of Wisconsin and basically rolled Rebecca Clayfish, who's been running for governor since she was lieutenant governor. It was amazing to me that he had the power to basically buy an electoral outcome, and he did it, Millie, all across the state of Wisconsin. He was buying up radio, and then later, after he won the primary, he got heavy on the television as well, but there were lots and lots of dollars spent. Now, I understand that Evers' team ultimately spent a lot more money,
and the outside groups as well,
than the Michels team
Yes.
between the primary and the general. But as I continue to point out, Democrats have little or no presence on the radio. And we're hoping to change that in future elective cycles. Right here at Civic Media, 844-967-2789. Cindy from Madison. Welcome, Cindy. What do you got
Cindy.
for us?
Hi, guys. Hey, I got a question on the referendum that was on the ballot here in Madison, the two referendums for legalizing marijuana and overturning the abortion ban. What were the results of those referendums?
Cindy, I knew you were going to try to stump the panelists. I believe I had seen that it was something north of 75% on the legalized marijuana referendum. We had a similar ballot question on our ballot in Middleton last night. I know how I answered it, Cindy. And there was also an abortion question. Would you vote to overturn the 1849 ban, something of that effect?
That's what it was.
And honestly, I'm waiting for Dom to Google quicker, but he's moving a little
my
slow
Google's
today,
broke
Cindy.
right now. I did see, again, unfortunately, out of Milwaukee, it was about 70-30 as well.
Cindy, we will get you answers. Probably not Dom. Probably going to have to turn to someone else, but we will get you answers, hopefully very, very soon. 844-967-2789. Last night, as I was pitching around the state and I was asking random questions of all our fine hosts and different people, Dom, I found I stumped the panelist a couple times, but not to the same degree that apparently Cindy has stumped you. Do we have the marijuana referendum?
I'm looking, Crudy. I'm looking.
It's worth a Google.
Let's see here. Voted overwhelmingly. So Dane County voters voted overwhelmingly for these ballot referendums. Let's get to it from Madison.com. Let's see. Legalization had a question. 76% of voters said then in 2018 that they support legalization. But where is it for now? 87%. Oh, damn it. It's one of those days, man.
I almost feel like you're struggling to do math on the radio. While you struggle, let's get to CJ. CJ, red wave my ass.
Well, at least we stopped the drunken Santa Claus, the worst president ever in our lifetime.
You didn't, CJ. He's still the president. Joe Biden, I mean, what a waste of... You've been on hold the whole time.
I know, that's all you got?
Weak, CJ. You've had at least 20 minutes on hold to pry him, and all you can talk about is a drunken Santa Claus. And Joe Biden's still the president, CJ. Donald Trump, the actual bloated Santa Claus kind of framed guy, he ain't. Although I hear he's going to run again, Tom. He'll make him very proud, I'm sure.
Crudy, the referendums in Dane County passed by a 4-1 margin with 87% precincts reporting. I saw, obviously, it's about 4-1.
4-1.
4-1.
About 80%. I said 75. My bad. Mea culpa. How about the abortion referendum? Is that listed?
It just lists them all as they all passed at about 4-1 margin is what Madison.com is reporting.
There were some questions about school funding on my referendum, my ballot yesterday in Milton as well. I better look and find out before someone asks me on the air what the outcome of those referendums were. I did take my son, Caden. I was very proud of him. You know, I think Caden picked every winner, Mark Pocan, Tony Evers, Josh Call. He had Mandela, unfortunately, missed that one on his bingo card. But the one race, Tom, I don't know if we know the outcome of in the state of Wisconsin. Secretary of State Doug LaFollette. The venerable Doug LaFollette, he's been the Secretary of State like 42 years. Amy Loudenbeck, who's something of a election denier, wants to use the office for malfeasance. Well, there's still a question. The margin of error right now is about 6,000 votes. Last I heard, Doug LaFollette was in the lead in that race, but I don't think that one has been declared. And based on what, 0.3%, there'll be a recount. And considering, I think Loudenbeck's running on the whole concept of decertify the election and stop the steal.
Great.
Regardless of the outcome, you know she's going to claim it's a rigged election. Kind of goes with the MO, if you know what I'm saying, Dom. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Some say the greatest radio show ever. Mostly us, but, you know.
Right now, New York Times reporting LaFollette up 48.31% to Loudenbeck's 48.05%.
That's close, baby. What's the
26 basis points?
What's the numerical margin between the votes, Tom? I can give you 10 seconds to do the math.
2,500
ish.
Round
numbers.
3,000.
I'm going to call that a rounding error. Come back, hour two. John Nichols from The Nation. A little bit later, Ben Wikler from the Democratic Party of Wisconsin.
CJ, the sauce is weak.
Hey, Dom, how many palindromes can you name in 30 seconds?
Race car, mom, dad, reefer, kayak, level. Did I say mom already?
You're forgetting one really important one.
Zero res.
Not only is it the coolest palindrome ever, it's also our favorite.
Right, I remember. Why is that again?
They advertise with us.
Zero res, favorite palindrome.
And carpet cleaner.
Get
the best carpet cleaning ever. Schedule your carpet cleaning online at zeroresmedicine.com. Tell them the Devil's Advocate sent you.
Salvatore's Tomato Pies, home of Madison's best farm-to-table pizza, is hiring. We are seeking line cooks, prep cooks, dishwashers, pizza makers, bartenders, servers, delivery drivers, and hosts. Sal's offers great pay, free shift meals, pay time off, and health insurance available for those working 30 hours a week. Students are welcome too. Positions available at all locations, Madison, Monona, and Sun Prairie. Stop into any location for an immediate interview or apply online at Salvatore's Tomato Pies.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire. President Biden says the Democrats had a strong night in the midterm elections, even with a number of House and Senate seats still in play.
We've lost very few seats for certain. We still have a possibility of keeping the House, but it's going to be close.
Biden also acknowledged the nation's voters face a lot of problems.
People across the country are going to see even more clearly the positive effects on their day-to-day lives. But I still understand why they're hurting right now. So many people are concerned.
The president says he's willing to work with Republicans.
Regardless of what the final tally in these elections show, and there's still some counting going on, I'm prepared to work with my Republican colleagues. The American people have made clear, I think, that they expect Republicans to be prepared to work with me as well.
A key Senate race won't be decided until a runoff December 6th. Neither Georgia incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock or Republican challenger Herschel Walker made the 50% plus one vote winning threshold. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger.
Right now, we're down under 10,000 votes, and we look at how many this person has and add all 10,000 to it. They wouldn't have 50%, likewise on the other side. And so that's why we're going to tell you that there will be a runoff.
Early voting in the runoff election starts on the 28th of this month. 2 other Senate races in Nevada and Arizona and about a dozen House races remain undecided. Meta, Facebook's parent company, is laying off 11,000 workers. The AP's Barbara Ortete explains why.
He says online advertising, economic trends are all part of the reason, but the company is also seeing increased competition, especially from TikTok and Instagram. It's not holding people's attention as much right now.
Twitter began adding gray official labels to some high-profile accounts to indicate they were authentic. A few hours later, the labels started to disappear. This is AP News.
First, we decide where we want to go. Then we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barada. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold. We're the highest rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor before.
Do you want to make the most of your wealth so you can live the life you want to lead? Hi, I'm Sue Peck, a CFP professional with Evolution Financial. I'm a local, independent, fee-only fiduciary financial advisor. When you choose Evolution Financial to manage your wealth, you're gaining a partner who will listen to your goals and guide you with your best interests in mind. Let's create the world you want to leave for future generations. Contact me at Evolution Financial by searching online for Evolution Financial Madison.
Evolution Financial is a registered investment advisor with the state of Wisconsin.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Do you work from home, run a business, a nonprofit, or just need to organize? If so, don't miss Jackson Office Supplies going on a business sale now, where all items are 70 to 80% off. Can't miss deals on essential desktop items, including label writers, 3-hole punches, pens, markers, and ergonomic accessories. Great brands too, like Eldon, Rogers, Rubbermaid, Dymo, and more. Sale starts now at Jackson Office Supplies, 4622 Femrite Drive, Madison. 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday, or call 608-628-4551.
Madison, tune in every weekday from 11 to 2 on Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM for the Thom Hartmann Program. Join the show's conversation because our democracy is not a spectator sport. Listen live right here on Devil Radio.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matner with your headlines. A new national report released last month, the Violence Policy Center ranked Wisconsin 8th highest in cases of men murdering women in 2020. Of the 467 people killed last year as a result of domestic violence, 80 were Wisconsin residents. That's according to a new report from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. That makes it the deadliest year for domestic violence in Wisconsin and also means 17% of all of the nation's domestic violence deaths cases, nearly 1 in 6, happened in the Badger State. Executive Director of End Domestic Abuse Wisconsin, Monique Minkins, tells the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel 67% of the domestic abuse deaths in 2021 involved guns, and in only 1/3 of those cases last year were the perpetrators legally prohibited from owning them. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM, WTTN, 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Election Day Hangover Edition. Dom, little hair of the dog, man. We'll
It's
get
happy
through
hour
it.
now, man. We'll be just fine.
It's the happier happy hour, and I'm happy to announce we got a fine guest right from the top. He is John Nichols from The Nation, friend of ours. John, welcome back to what some say is the greatest radio show ever.
Hey, John.
Hey, it's good to be with you. I just want to start out by apologizing to the American people for having participated in a process that forced them to listen to Kevin McCarthy.
We blame you, John.
John, I'm not exactly sure what happened last night, but I'm pretty damn sure Republicans lost. What was your take?
Oh, yeah, it was. Well, here's how to start the conversation. Look, think about how you felt 24 hours ago.
Stressed.
Right? I mean, generally, everybody I was talking to, even the most optimistic people I knew, were saying, oh my gosh, this is a miserable, awful situation. It's looking really bad, hoping, maybe a few Democrats can hang on. There might possibly be, we might possibly be able to, form a rearguard action and defend democracy as best possible before it's completely dismantled. It was a pretty stark and ugly moment. Now, 24 hours later, we're looking at a situation where Kevin McCarthy, the most inept man in American politics, he still hasn't, they've declared like almost 400 seats. He still doesn't have a majority. And Mitch McConnell, the most crooked man in American politics, he didn't have a majority in the U.S. Senate, and it's looking like he may not get there. And then as regards governors, the Democrats, actually picked up 2 governorships. They've won several legislative chambers around the country. They've defended their ability to sustain vetoes for Democratic governors in states across the country. On balance, for a midterm election, it's the best that Democrats have had since 1962, when John Kennedy was fighting, to keep Democrats in a position of power immediately after the Cuban Missile Crisis. So it's been 60 years since Democrats have done this well in a midterm.
Well, I didn't.
In a midterm where they had a Democratic president in the first term.
Sure.
Yeah.
To make that clear.
Well, again, I didn't perceive it as such a great night for Team Blue, as a god-awful night for Republicans. That's a party of disarray, John.
Look, comrade, when you're in a battle, when there are 2 players, if your opponent goes down, you win. And so that's what happened, right? It isn't that the Democrats necessarily prevailed because they did everything right, because we could spend the next 3 or 4 hours talking about everything they did wrong. But the fact of the matter is that while the Democrats screwed up on a lot of stuff, including not really having an economic message, during an inflation crisis, the Republicans screwed it up worse. And so at the end of the day, you end up with a situation where in a midterm election, where on average, the party that is out of power picks up 31 seats in the House of Representatives and 2 seats in the U.S. Senate, and usually sweeps the governorships. None of that happened. So, this is a pretty good midterm for the Democrats.
Yeah.
John Nichols from The Nation. How about here in the state of Wisconsin, John? Mostly we had very little change, but then there was the U.S. Senate seat. And obviously everyone saw Ron Johnson as being the most vulnerable incumbent Republican on the ballot because Joe Biden had won the state. Democrats had done fairly well, at least in statewide elections. Well, here's the troubling part. Not only was Ron a participant in the January 6th, and people apparently are just fine with that compared to, racist ads targeting at Mandela Barnes, but also Van Orden, this insurrectionist in the 3rd CD, Congressman insurrectionist, we'll be calling him soon. Very troubling from that regard. Apparently, we only favor democracy by very thin margins here.
Look, again, this is a situation where the Democrats screwed up, and I'm not here to beat up the Democrats. They had a pretty good night, and I think it was better than expected. We should get to talking about Tony Evers, who I think ran one of the best campaigns I've ever seen in Wisconsin and got the rewards for it. But recognize this, the Democratic Party abandoned Brad Pfaff out in the 3rd district. So Brad Pfaff, on his own, literally putting up his own signs, got himself to over 48% of the vote. I mean, he got himself to virtually to victory with almost no serious support for the National Democratic Party, complete abandonment. And then Mandela Barnes, after his primary win, the Democrats allowed him to be outspent by $6 million in that key period after the primary, when all those negative ads, those racist ads were running. Mandela Barnes gets outspent by $6 million. That knocks him down in the polls, 6 points in the Marquette poll. He was, looking in a pretty bad position. And then this remarkable candidate, and I'm going to give him a lot of credit, he goes into those debates, despite everything that's been thrown at him. He prevails in the debate. He then campaigns with Barack Obama at a key event, goes out and works his fingers to the bone, does an incredible campaign in the final weeks, and is literally gaining about a half point a day. It's rare that you see a candidate surge as much as Mandela Barnes did in the last, 10 days of this campaign.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, if the Democrats hadn't let him get down 6 points at that critical early stage, he would have been building from a point of strength, and I would argue would have won an easy victory. So, it's still a time to celebrate a lot of good news, recognize a lot of good things that happen. But at some point, if you want to start pointing fingers of blame, I think you have to recognize that the national Democrats did not read Wisconsin right. If they had read Wisconsin right, what was a pretty good night in Wisconsin could have been a great night.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. John Nichols from The Nation and Cap Times joining us. John, the Republicans, as former President Barack Obama mentioned in Milwaukee at North Division High School, they do have an economic message, and they're fairly consistent about it. It's tax cuts, John. Inflation, tax cuts, right? Everything's tax cuts.
So they're for redistribution of the wealth.
You're right.
Upward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to push back a little bit on your premise, John, though. I was optimistic. As a little role switching here on the Devil's Advocates. Usually it's Crudy, and I'm the pessimistic one. But given all the information that we've seen, what we know, and the trajectory, the trends from what MAGA, when they elected Donald Trump, and what has happened since then, I think it kind of par for the course. Given what you said, historically speaking, certainly almost a great circumstance, but it could have been better. And I know you mentioned in some other interviews, John, I saw your Twitter stream about the messaging from the Democrats. Not only did they perhaps lose some opportunities in Western Wisconsin, but perhaps could have been more succinct and sharp on the messaging. Your thoughts, John?
100%. Come on. How hard is it to, in an inflationary moment? And remember, inflation's real, right? It's not something
no doubt
that you can talk your way around and say, hey, look the other way. There's something else to think about. No, if people are paying dramatically more for gas, for food, for, the basics of life, they're going to notice it. And if they're afraid that it's going to get worse, that's a problem. So how hard is it to say price gouging, corporate greed, going to give us some power, give us a little more power there to whip the Democrats in shape, and we will use that power to take on the corporations, lower the prices for your gas with the windfall profits tax and other interventions, lower the prices for your food, do more production in the U.S., and, because it works, we'll make, and you're suffering a little bit, we'll give you all a $1,000 check. Make some promises, right? It wouldn't have been that hard, but they didn't do it. And so they let the Republicans run a whole campaign based on inflation's really bad. Vote for us. They didn't even have a plan, but because the Democrats didn't have a counter message, the Republicans filled that space. Now, the thing that saved the Democrats is something that I think surprised at least a few people, not me, and I think obviously not you, was that when those exit polls came out, abortion rights was almost as high an issue as inflation.
Yeah.
And so that was the saving grace. That was the fact that even though the Democrats didn't have a message on the number one issue, they did have a clear message on the number two issue. Everybody knew the Democrats were running as a pro-choice party, the Republicans as the anti-choice. And so as a result, Democrats were able to fill that void. And, I have very little question that the choice issue saved Tony Evers and Josh Kaul, especially Josh Kaul, a very close win. I think it was absolutely essential to their victories. And I think it's probably also saved the Republican ability to sustain veto, or Democratic ability to sustain vetoes in the state legislature. So the choice issue proved to be a really vital one. And boy, I'll tell you, when I saw, especially all those young people turning out to vote on the college campuses, I think that was a central issue.
John Nichols, let's spend the last minute or so talking about Tony Evers. You said you thought he had a very effective campaign. What was so good about it?
Okay, so this is an evenly divided state, right? The last 6 presidential campaigns, 4 of them were decided by under 25,000 votes. So closely divided state. Tony Evers came in and, more than doubled his victory margin from the last race. How did he do it? By attacking hard. He went after Tim Michels very, very aggressively by focusing on the issues and basically selling himself as a boring, decent guy. It was a great campaign, an outstanding message, and it gave him a pretty tremendous victory.
Holy mackerel, that's our buddy John Nichols from The Nation. John, appreciate you coming around, sharing a hangover with us the day after the election. John Nichols, talk to you real soon, my friend.
Thank you, John.
All right. I will talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. We're going to take a few phone calls from you now. Maybe name some winners and losers from last night's big election right here in the state of Wisconsin. I'm looking at you, Tim Michels, thinking loser. And give me the phone number quick before Ben Wikler comes, 844-967-2789.
Holy mackerel, folks.
Okay, forest animals, kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow, have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. River, how's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man.
I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. Okay. Squirrel.
The forest has been preparing just for you. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at P4PPC.org.
The Devil's Advocates.
Aaron Mustovsky, who rioted at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, was dressed as Captain Caveman. QAnon shaman meets Law and Order.
Right. I mean, he pulled it off a whole lot better than Aaron Mustovsky.
Well, let me read a quote from the judge in this case. I hope you'll leave some of this fantasy world behind. Mustovsky was sentenced to 8 months in prison.
Looking at the guy, he might be one who loses his mattress on the first day. Breaking news.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Be able to go back to the movies.
Introduce my family to my new girlfriend.
For my husband, who's been a chronic asthmatic his whole life.
So I can visit friends in a different state.
So I can take my granddaughter out to the park again.
So that I can hug my 85-year-old grandma again.
We each have our own reason for why we're getting vaccinated against COVID-19. What will yours be? Visit getvaccineanswers.org for information on the COVID-19 vaccines. It's up to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Malarkey. The Devil's Advocates invented malarkey.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open for your take. 844-967-2789. Ben Wikler, chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, going to join us at the bottom of the hour.
Dominic, want to thank John Nichols and want to bring to your attention a newest piece from Dan Bice. He always writes up the big winners and losers. Well, I would say the winners, the big winners, listeners of the
Our
Devil's
audience,
Advocates
yes.
radio show. Absolutely.
Congratulations, everybody. You're welcome.
And the civic media coverage last night, it was comprehensive. It was stellar. Soon to be award-winning, I suspect. But anyways, let's get to the winners and the losers. 8 unexpected winners and losers from Tuesday's election whose names didn't appear on your ballot. Oh, being creative, Dan Bice. We were all told to expect a red wave, but what we got was the status quo. After all the TV and radio ads, mostly from the right, I'm adding that part because I didn't hear a lot of dim radio ads, all the mailers and all the text messages, so many text messages, Wisconsin voters decided they pretty much liked what they already had. The voters decided they wanted 4 more of Governor Tony Evers. They wanted 4 more of Attorney General Josh Call. And apparently we wanted 6 more years of U.S. Senator Ron Johnson.
4 years. Oh, my God.
Dom, I did recently point out he had promised us on this fine program he was only running twice. So he's something of a liar.
Liar.
So much for being the citizen legislator, Dan Bice writes. In truth, the formula for Johnson, a Republican, and Evers, a Democrat, was incredibly similar. The two incumbents and their deep-pocketed allies hit their opponents early and often in the general election, saying that they were too extreme for Wisconsin, though for very different reasons. And Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, a Democrat challenging Johnson, and businessman Tim Michels, a Republican opposing Evers, failed to respond quickly and effectively. If someone, this is a quote, Dom, prominent Republican, if someone is spending millions calling you soft on crime in the case of Mandela Barnes, or saying your company looks the other way on sexual harassment claims, you better respond on the same medium with the same intensity.
Right.
Neither Barnes nor Michels did. And as Dan Bice writes, there you go. And here are the other winners and losers from Tuesday night's general election. Dom, give me a winner.
Fruity, a winner, according to Dan Bice, old tweets. If Elon Musk ends up killing Twitter, he will be doing a big favor to many a future political candidate. But until that day, we in the media would ask all those thinking of running for political office to leave their old tweets alone and let us decide whether your clever posts on Trump, Russian propaganda TV, George Washington, AOC, and Ali Khamenei should be shared with the general public. We'll gladly do the work. Much appreciated.
Another winner, Tom. Democracy, baby.
Woohoo!
Look at that. The polls closed long ago. We had several close races, and no one is claiming that anything was rigged. Well, that's because Rojo won, but I could see Tim Michels having made that sort of call, and I can absolutely see Amy Loudenbeck doing so if that Supreme Court, the Secretary of State race is down to 5,000 or 6,000 votes. And that's how you do it, folks, according to Daniel Bice. Consider Michael's talking about eliminating the State Elections Commission and perhaps even decertifying the 2020 election. But even though he lost, his side is not calling for a federal investigation or examination of voting machines. Well, not yet, Dom. Give him time. Give him time. As Bice writes, instead, people are blaming his loss on any number of other factors, including the lack of a clear agenda, his support for former President Donald Trump, and his hardline position on abortion. Here's another quote, Dom, from a Republican, not named here by Bice. GOP also underestimated the strength of abortion issue with younger voters. You thunk?
Crudy.
Wait.
What? Yes, go ahead.
One other possibility. Maybe Tim Michels was just a really bad candidate.
Yes, I told you, man. He did everything right except they had a terrible candidate. Another loser, according to Bice, the Wisconsin Elections Commission. 2 people, both of them now facing criminal charges, helped expose shortcomings in the state's voting system in the past month. Racine resident Harry Waite has pleaded not guilty to election fraud after he requested absentee ballots in the names of Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, Racine Mayor Corey Mason, and others. Former Milwaukee Election Commission's Deputy Director Kimberly Zapata was charged with a felony and 3 misdemeanors after asking for absentee ballots reserved for members of the military and having them sent to a Republican lawmaker. It shouldn't have been that easy to get the fraudulent ballots, but it was. Now both incidents will serve as fodder for Voss and other Republican lawmakers as they decide the fate of the beleaguered commission. You know, the commission that the Republicans created.
Dominic, I actually want to jump ahead here, so I will acknowledge another winner, according to Dan Bice, gridlock. But here's the one I would like to roll out for the audience. Loser, friendly primaries. This is a pet peeve of yours truly. The Democrats never challenge one another in the primaries. There's no real competition going on there. They're all, I appreciate my colleague and he's so smart. Well, then why are you running against that person? Because whoever has the greatest name recognition on the first day they enter the race, see at the finish line. That's the way it usually works. But anyways, as Bice writes, Democratic rep, our pal, Mark Pocan, is a firm believer in friendly Democratic primaries. He even calls Democratic candidates in competitive primaries if he thinks they're being too tough on the others. Well, the oh-so-friendly Democratic primary in the U.S. Senate race, most of the candidates even dropped out before Election Day, didn't do Mandela Barnes any favors. He came across as unvetted, unprepared when Johnson and his allies unleashed their attack ads days into the general election. Here's to primaries that look more like real elections and less like high school reunions, according to Dan Bice. I agree with that. Mostly.
Yes.
Throw the elbows in the primaries. If you're going to expose the chinks, I want to hear about it in the primary.
Okay, do you do the same thing that the Republicans do? Do you run the ads and darken Mandela's skin? I mean, to what degree are you trying to?
At your own peril,
well,
you
I know,
do
but
that.
this is what I'm saying, though. But that's what they're going to be expecting. How do you prep for that as a candidate?
Well, I don't think there's any Democrat in their right mind that would think that that is a winning formula for a primary, Dom. But guess what? Here it comes, and the result was a loss for Mandela Barnes in this case. Come back. Ben Wikler, Democratic Party Chair, great state of Wisconsin.
Supplying your political fix in the back roads, WTTN 1580 AM and Wisconsin's home for Devil Radio.
Over the past 30 years, Chad's Design Build has grown and improved how we do things, but we've never lost sight of our commitment to be a great place to work, focused on quality renovations for outstanding clients. Paying a living wage and providing excellent benefits to promote work-life balance does in fact attract outstanding people, which helps to explain our stellar reputation. Thank you, Madison, for 30 amazing years, building a better world one remodeled home at a time. This is Chad Spate for Chad's Design Build.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us
Hey, Ben, how we doing?
Garden. Again,
You know, better than they have any right to be.
You know what I'm saying though? Like I'm having a tough time convincing some folks like we're the lamb who made it out of the slaughterhouse.
It is really, really true. The thing I just remind people every chance I get is the last time Democrats win a governor's race with a Democratic president was 1962 with a 1% margin when the president's approval rating was 65%.
Yeah,
it is like,
Neighbors loves to joke about landslides, but I mean, this was pretty decisive.
3 points, man. Nobody wins by 3 points unless your name is Tammy Baldwin.
We love Tammy. Okay, we're back in 2 minutes. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
And our intention, regardless of what the outcome of this election was.
I'm Tim.
First, we decide where we want to go. Then we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barada. I'm the owner of Advantage Gold. We're the highest rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we've won the Best of TrustLink Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to buy gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with my latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor before.
This is Pat Kreitlow from Up North News Radio. I'll be the first to admit I'm getting ahead of myself here, but let's talk about the next elections. We're only 3 weeks away from when candidates can start collecting signatures to get on the spring ballot for school boards, municipal boards, judgeships, and other nonpartisan local elected offices. If a primary is needed, it'll be held in February. The general is in April, and it's going to be a big one because a right-wing justice on the state Supreme Court is retiring. If a progressive wins, the court swings to a 4-3 progressive majority. Remember, this current court, 4-3 conservative, ruled out of thin air that drop boxes are suddenly illegal and that the previous gerrymandered maps needed to be even more gerrymandered. A new majority on the court could restore some sanity to the chaos that has plagued our elections since Republicans went on the attack against fair maps, fair elections, and democracy itself. We're Up North News.
You're listening to the radio show your mother warned you about, The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the election hangover edition. Some feeling better than others. We're all feeling great, though, because we got a fine guest to introduce. He is the Democratic Party of Wisconsin chairman, Ben Wikler. Ben, I'm calling this a blue wave, at least a fairly good blue outcome. Ben, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Ben.
Thanks so much. Hey, guys. Such a pleasure to be with you. This is one way to think about it is that there was a red wave that was met by a blue wave and the blue wave won. You know, this was 2018. We had this explosive turnout. We hit those same numbers this time. And this time we almost tripled the margin of victory for Tony Evers against the Republican. And in the Senate race, despite a huge spending advantage, we came within a percentage point of defeating Ron Johnson, which, I mean, it's a heartbreaker, but it is also a testament to Mandela running way ahead of what the dollars, any of the pollsters, any of the predictors and prognosticators thought. This is the closest loss that we have in the country in any Senate race. And it's one of the top 3 closest Senate races in the country. And Mandela Barnes has essentially been written off by national Democrats. They were sending money to Florida and Ohio instead of Wisconsin. That sound familiar? So I have to say, I'm so proud of everyone who went to bat. So proud of our candidates. And we still have a democracy in the state of Wisconsin going into 2023 and 2024. That is a big win.
Ben, you were there today when Mandela Barnes conceded, or at least I thought I saw you in the crowd. Ben, he was forward looking in his concession speech.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was very proud to stand next to him, his parents, Gwen Moore, as he gave a speech that was not the speech he wanted to be giving at this moment. He ran so hard. He did 100 stops in the last 16 days of this race. But he said, look, he energized voters, young voters, voters of color and white voters, rural, suburban, and urban folks across the state of Wisconsin in this big project of building the state that we're trying to be able to build. And so he's not giving up. I don't think any of us should give up. The fact that he came this close this time in a year with a Democratic president, midterms always go against the president's party, that suggests that there could be a very different outcome 6 years from now, and there's a lot of other stuff to win in between. This is a movement that crosses, it's not only the Democratic Party and Democrats, but it is grassroots organizations, unions, anyone who thinks that we should be a state where everyone can thrive, not just the few. And that movement is rolling forward and is demonstrating that it can win in very, very tough conditions. It's deeply inspiring.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Ben Wikler, chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party. Ben, congratulations. A good night, not a great night, but a solid night, especially considering all the variables. The youth turnout, I got to be honest, Ben, with the Roe v. Wade and seeing the lines at the campuses and college and the reporting, I think the youth really came out, and it's great. It's inspiring to see people that this is not just about elections. This is self-governance, and self-governance requires people to stay engaged. And I'm hoping that's what we can continue to do. I mean, hell, we got another primary coming up in February, Ben. I know we can, perhaps take a breather for a moment, but this still continues. So the youth and people getting out to engage in self-governance is certainly, to my mind, inspiring. Ben, what about the other turnouts? Did you see? What were you really impressed with?
Well, I underscore 1,000 times what you're saying about young voters in our state. In 2010 and 2014, there was this myth arose that young people don't care about midterm elections. They're never going to turn out in midterms. Well, they turned out in 2018, and we won every office in the state. And then we have a Democratic president. They didn't disappear. They turned out yet again. We have at least some of the highest youth turnout in the country. I would be interested to see, we might turn out to have the highest campus turnout in the United States this year. We've been in the top 3 for the last several election cycles. That is a youth quake, and it is essential to how we win elections. But I'll point to a couple of other things as well. Republicans are losing ground in the suburbs around Milwaukee, and people thought that maybe this was just the anti-Trump effect. Well, Trump was not on the ballot. Trump did not show up here during the general election. These are people who see the extremism of the whole Republican Party, from Tim Michels to Ron Johnson to Eric Toney for Attorney General and everywhere else. And they're saying, no, that is not the kind of state we want to live in. And in rural areas, Tony Evers ran several points ahead of where he did in 2018. And that's a testament to Democrats who've never given up, and the work that as the party, the candidates have done to shore up Democratic support, even in the deep red parts of our state. I'm just really, don't get me started on the explosive turnout in Dane County and the leapfrogging over voter suppression in Milwaukee. I'm proud of everybody for going to bat across this great state.
It was a great get out the vote effort, Ben, and everyone involved, to be commended. Reflection, looking back, though, we see Brad Pfaff came up short on the western side of the state. I've seen some criticism online of the DCCC. Ben, can you tell our viewers your perception of how all that one went down?
So there's two sides to the coin. The Wisconsin side, which is the side that I live on, is that if you go back in time and the DCCC says we're going to be in this to win this, we're going to do everything we can to support Brad Pfaff. He landed 4 points behind after being outspent something like 4-1, and had a winning message. And he's just a better fit for the district than Derek Van Orden, who moved there in order to grab a political position. I think we could have won that race in a different world. The other side of the coin is this is an incredibly tight race for the House majority, which no one thought was going to be possible. And so the folks nationally who were making these decisions were looking at all these districts that are on a knife's edge right now. So, it's hard to be in their shoes, but I will say I will always do what I did during this election, which is to call on our national partners to put more resources into our state. And I think the way that Brad Pfaff showed up in a year and in a district that was looking tough actually gives us a lot of hope for 2 years from now. And that district is absolutely purple. And I think Brad is a tremendous candidate there.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine guest. He is Ben Wikler, chairman of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Ben, perhaps the most troubling takeaway from last night. I know that Mandela Barnes, late in the campaign, talked about the fact that U.S. Senator Ron Johnson participated, was a willing conduit of the fraudulent Trump electors, and wanted to give them to the vice president. Above and beyond that, we know that now Congressman-elect Van Orden should be called Insurrectionist Van Orden. And the election's over, but the people in the third CD of the state of Wisconsin, even though it was a close margin, Ben, they hired an insurrectionist to represent them. We talked about the fact democracy was on the ballot last night. But in this specific regard, in regards to the January 6th, I'm not sure if Wisconsin voters passed that test. And that's very troubling to me, Ben.
Well, I will say there was another insurrectionist on the ballot in a district nested within the 3rd Congressional District, which is Dave Essenson, who was on the wall next to the Capitol with Derek Van Orden. And Dave Essenson ran for state senate against Jeff Smith in a rural district, and Jeff Smith defeated him by 5 percentage points. So that was a definite triumph. Part of that was because in that race, Jeff Smith had the resources to be able to make sure voters knew just how extreme Essenson was. And in a congressional race, unfortunately, the state party doesn't have the same kind of legal leeway to be able to provide that kind of support to the congressional candidate. But this was a very, very hard year for congressional candidates to raise the money, to be able to run the ads, to get the word out to people. What we saw in research in this election was that when voters knew that Derek Van Orden had gone to the insurrection, and when they knew that he was on probation for trying to bring a gun on a plane, that he'd yelled at a teenage library page, they voted for a bad path. Yeah, I think it's not that he didn't have a winning message. He did. It's just that not enough people heard it. As they say, it's not just what you say, it's what they hear. And if you're not able to communicate at the level that people actually hear it, it's hard to make that dent. I would not put this on the voters. I think if we rerun that race and have equal communication volume on both sides, I think we could win. And I think Brad did a very effective job of using the very tough hand that he was dealt. But you're right. I mean, democracy is still at risk. And I unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to say that 2024 is a less significant election than 2022, because we're going to have to fight to make sure that we don't wind up in a situation where people who don't want to allow the legitimate results of an election to be counted can have power over our country.
Ben Wikler, Democratic Party of Wisconsin chair. Ben, I'd love to give the audience a break, talk about, old-fashioned recipes, something of that sort. The threat from the former president, Donald Trump, is that he's going to announce his candidacy next week. And that will basically be game on for 2024. Ben, as I look out nationally, I see that Ron DeSantis won re-election effectively in the state of Florida, and that seemingly would strengthen his candidacy for the presidency. Ben, I know that the Democrats aren't happy with the way that Iowa went the last time around, but because of circumstances and logistics and who controls state legislatures, the Republicans have already locked in their schedule, and it includes Iowa, South Carolina, Nevada, etc., and New Hampshire. I'm sorry to exclude the Granite State. Are the Democrats, as you're hearing it, Ben, considering we're going to turn to the presidential perhaps as soon as next week, sir, are the Democrats locked in now? Are we stuck with Iowa, like it or not?
There's a process underway at the Democratic National Committee where they've gotten bids from a ton of different states to join the ranks of the early vote. Iowa has to bid alongside other states. I wrote a letter recommending our friends in Minnesota and Michigan as early primary states. Both states applied. Wisconsin did not. I think we have plenty on our minds, and I don't like the idea of negotiating with Robin Vos to get him to move our primary date to February. So for us, I think it's good to have upper Midwestern states as part of that process. But I will say that our focus here is less on the primary schedule for 24 and more on the state Supreme Court race on April 4th of 2023, because that race will shape almost as much as the fight against Republican supermajorities and the fight for our governorship. That race will determine whether we have a free and even playing field or whether we have a state Supreme Court that invents wild ways to suppress the vote. I was knocking on doors before or on election day. I talked to someone whose daughter had filled out an absentee ballot and then left for a 72-hour shift as an EMT across the state. Her dad tried to return that absentee ballot and was told, no, that is now illegal because of a Supreme Court decision. That's voter suppression. And winning that Supreme Court race is how we can build democracy, build back better, as it were, in the next 6 months.
Ben Wikler, you talk about the Supreme Court race. Let's think about that for just a minute. We've got Judge Janet Protasiewicz. I think I'm saying her name right. She is declared in this race. We also have Everett Mitchell, and then we have former Scott Walker appointee to the Supreme Court, who was defeated, I believe, by Jill Karofsky by like 163,000 votes. Doesn't seem like the best candidate, but that's who they're going to run. Now, Ben, these are supposed to be nonpartisan races, but we recognize of recent history, they've turned into partisan races. We've talked about this before, Ben, but what is the Democratic Party's stance on supporting, let's call it, the liberal candidate as we come out of the February primary and turn towards the general, presumably against Dan Kelly?
The stakes in the state Supreme Court race are hard to overstate. And after February 18th, it'll most likely be one more independent or progressive candidate and one hard right Trumpist extremist, probably Dan Kelly. Our administrative committee, our statewide governing board, has to vote 3/4 to endorse somebody in a race like that. But I would be very surprised if they did not cast that vote, because we could wind up with someone who wants to rig the next election, or we could wind up with someone who thinks that voters should decide on our leaders. And so I think this is exactly the kind of moment when having a strong state party going to bat can make a huge difference. And I would be remiss if we didn't take that opportunity.
Ben, talking about, election deniers and important races, we still, last I heard, don't have a determinate race in the Doug LaFollette, Amy Loudenbach. About 6,000 the lead for LaFollette. I hear that could be a electoral administrative position if Republicans were fully in charge. Ben, where do we stand? Latest news, what can you tell us?
Doug is ahead, and it looks like that lead will be durable. We'll see if Republicans try to call for a recount, if they're ready to pay for something like that or not. But I think that's a race that we're gonna win, and that means the big lie failed its tests pretty much up and down the ballot in Wisconsin state offices. I only wish it failed hard enough to be able to take out Senator Ron Johnson at the same time.
Well, Ben, that is the only real disappointment, that and the Derek Van Orden. But Ben Wikler, really appreciate you coming around on short notice. Congrats to the Dems. More Devil's Advocates on the other side. Going to the phones, 844-967-2789.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks so much, guys.
Good work. Sleep well. I'm most likely to kill you in the morning.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
Today, I made a mental note. It was 1:09 Central Time when I found out Ron Johnson was a conspirator in a coup, a traitor to the Constitution, and Ron's been something of an apologist. They seem real friendly. Well, maybe to you, Ron, because you were on the inside of the coup, and I've never made that accusation prior to today. So let's play it for the people.
This staffer stated that Senator Johnson wished to hand-deliver the fake electors' votes from Michigan and Wisconsin.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter. You've waited 12 years for this, but you just didn't know what the flavor was going to be. Nothing has tasted quite right up until now. Sometimes it tasted dumb, crazy, or even seditious. But now it tastes just right. Introducing Mandela Mash, a legit lager. This beer won't embarrass you in public. It comes in an aluminum can, not a tinfoil hat, and it was made in America, not Russia. With a clean finish, the taste doesn't lie. Mandela Mash, the only sane choice for U.S. Senate. Available only in Wisconsin. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to find where you can buy this fresh new flavor of American democracy.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
What an incredible Cinderella story. This unknown comes out of nowhere to lead the pack.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
It's the one and only Eagle Double G.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the last segment of the day. So if you got something to say, hit us up right now at 844-967-2789.
Crew Talk in the hizzy, Dom?
The old double G.
This one does throw me back to college.
Oh, for sure.
And the place where we lived. College roommates. You know, we got to remember, we got new friends finding us each and every day. People don't know the glorious story of the Devil's Advocates.
We shared a few yesterday, but yes, long
college
time.
roommates.
30 years, over 30 years we've known each other.
Well, we shared them with some of our colleagues here in civic media.
They still came into work today, so that was good.
They did, but they look at us differently now. 844-967-2789. Your chance to sound off on last night's elections before we hit the end of this big show. We're not going till 2 a.m. tonight.
No. Thank you, Ben Wikler, Chair, Wisconsin Democratic Party.
Yes. Thank you, Ben. Jack from Merrimack, thanks for listening, man. What do you got for us?
Jack from the Mac, what's up?
Well, it seems to me that Tony Evers and Mandela Barnes are pretty much on the same page in terms of their policies. And it also seems that the attacks against both of them were pretty much the same. Be careful, these guys are dangerous. They're weak on crime. And the only difference I can see between those two candidates, the major difference, Mandela Barnes is black. And that means that the difference between Tony Evers winning and Mandela Barnes losing is racism, period, flat out. 50% plus of this state must be pretty racist. And that's a pretty disgusting thing for me to think about.
Jack, I don't want to cast it all under the racist broad brush. Here's what I would say. Certainly, I feel like those crime ads attacking our buddy Mandela Barnes, I certainly feel like they had impact. Why do I feel that way? We saw the shifting in the polls, right? We know it had impact. And certainly I would say, yes, can we attribute any of that to racism? Probably. Absolutely, Jack, yes. But there are differences between Mandela Barnes and Governor Tony Evers. A, Governor Tony Evers is the incumbent governor of the state. B, Mandela is more progressive. I mean, Tony never got caught up in the activism of things like abolish ICE and defund the police. And I'm not saying that is the position of Mandela Barnes, Jack, but it was certainly cast that way. And it was hard to cast Tony in the same light. I mean, you could say his reaction to Kenosha was ineffective, but he didn't look like, Tony Evers didn't look like, as you referenced before, Jack, the Darrell Brooks, the parade murderer from Waukesha. The fact that there are so many, the fact that they had this trial going on right before the election in Waukesha, this tragedy still fresh, November 21st, the 1-year anniversary of this tragic event, Jack. And the fact that Ron Johnson had no qualms utilizing this, well, I know where Ron's head was at, and I can certainly look at the undervote relative to Tony Evers, and I can tell you, Jack, you make some pretty good points, man.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I mean, I think Barnes would make an excellent senator, and he's still young. 6 years from now, he could still be a really strong force. And I certainly hope that he does continue his political and his activist career, because he's been a real boon to positive direction of this state, I think.
Jack, I think, again, we agree with you because we like Mandela Barnes. He'll have a future. I mean, the guy's 35. We didn't even start the Devil's Advocates radio show, the greatest radio show ever.
Ever.
Dom and crew were in our early 40s when we started doing this show. Now we're like 38, and I don't know how the clock's going backwards.
Thanks, Jack. Yes, very.
That
very
one's for
concerning.
Roxanne.
Nice. Very concerning. I mean, and ultimately, are these Dems? You know, again, we talk about the racism. Racism, it is a thing. It goes everywhere. It creeps everywhere to people and parties across this nation. So, are there people who voted for Tony Evers and not for Mandela Barnes who did so specifically because he was black? Yeah, odds are probably there's some of those out there, Jack. Thanks, man.
Well, we looked at Dane County, Milwaukee County, these very blue areas, Jack, and there was still undervote for Mandela.
Yes.
844-967-2789. Mary from Tosa. Mary, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hi, Mary.
Hey, Crute and Dom. Many of us are celebrating the outcome of the election, with the exception of the Senate race. But I think something that's missing from this conversation is a huge part that Devil's Radio has played in the outcome. After the 2016 election, I recall the thing that picked me up was hearing Devil's Radio, and you're continuing to this day. Thank you, thank you.
Well, Mary, we promised. Come hell or high water, no matter what the outcome was. Dom and I were doing a show today, and Dom was probably going to drink tequila.
Mary, thank you. Go ahead. You got more thoughts, Mary?
No, that's all. Just keep it up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so much. We will take maybe a little victory lap, as Craig Gilbert pointed out. Michael's underperformed in Waukesha over 2018.
WAUK 540 AM,
Good point.
101.1
Yes.
FM, The Shaw. I
Yes.
feel like we've made certain investments in Waukesha County, Dom.
So not only did Michael's underperform in Waukesha, where we have those fine
You're
stations,
welcome.
Evers overperformed in Dane County over 2018.
We've been on the air here since May of 2019. Devil Radio went on the air 92.7. You're listening right now. If you're in Madison, went on the air in May of 2019. We're 3.5 years on the airwaves. And we keep delivering victories for Team Blue. You're welcome.
You're welcome, everybody.
844. Thank you for acknowledging our greatness.
Thank you, Mary.
844-967-2789. Wisco Paul, I bet you got a spotted cow in hand.
Hey, Paulie.
I had a couple on hand last night. Thanks for the coverage last night. It was so much
Yeah, the
better
team
than-
killed it, man. Civic Media, we got the best
it was
people.
awesome. I mean, it was just, well, I don't want to give you too big of a head, but it was totally awesome. I mean, when you compared it to, well, I won't mention any stations.
Watered down, whitey, righty talk radio coverage of the supposed red wave that was coming.
Yeah, right. Well, I was watching the coverage on TV, and your coverage was way, way superior. And I think the only thing I would say about Barnes is he didn't get out of the gate quick enough when Johnson started hammering him on the parade and other things. I think if he would have done that, maybe he would have won. I don't know. But, hey, kudos for your coverage. I mean, I can't say enough good things about your station and what you put together. Thank you, too. And, hey, not only that, you guys are always happy and funny, and that's really cool, too. So have a great night. Thanks.
Thanks, Paulie.
Paulie, I can tell you, some days we're faking that part.
No, come on, man. I'm a lot happier now than I was when I woke up this morning.
Well, that's the tequila talking and the pancakes in your belly. Nick, we saw you, man. Sorry we didn't get to you today, but give us a call back tomorrow. We're doing it again, man, because we are the glorious, winning, victorious blue team that is Civic Media, that is the greatest radio show ever. Devil's Advocates, thanks for listening.
This year we'll make enough on the harvest that I'll be able to hire some more hands, and then you can go to the academy next year.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Jade Monkey. Come to the Monkey and tell them you're there because the devil sent you.